Hey, Jake, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Ryan, yeah, Jake Rowland here. I work for Igloovision. I've been here about 12 years, helped grow this company from kind of three or four of us in a shed in the Midlands of the UK. Yeah, we've built this kind of global company now, delivering immersive technology around the globe, up to about sort of 90 employees now. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's been a long, hard slog. It's a pretty niche technology if anyone's looked into it. But yeah, so it's an emerging market, and we're kind of leading it, which is quite exciting. And we're kind of in the same vein as kind of virtual reality and the metaverse. So it's a really interesting time for us at the moment.
And how did you get responsible for sales?
Yeah, interesting story. So I went to uni to do events management. I'm a pretty practical guy. All the tutors there just told me it's all about real world experience in that industry. So I thought, okay, I'll go and get some real world experience, and dropped out. Started working in like restaurants and restaurant management. Met some guys at a party that had this crazy concept to build an immersive mobile nightclub, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm in. And the first couple of years I moved around with them from festivals and events, and I helped build these things, helped promote it a little bit. There was four of us at the time. And then we built our own software, and technology, and kind of hardware, and that's really what's grown, and the use cases have grown. So I got into sales about 8 years ago. So the original investor in Igloovision was a kind of serial kind of entrepreneur, sales background, trained in IBM in the 90s. So pretty aggressive, pretty go-getting.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of that imparted to me. I remember the conversation. So I was a rigger. We're at an event. He said, "Oh, how do you feel about getting into sales and marketing?" The typical us, early 20s, like, oh, it's not really for me. I'm not that kind of guy. And he twisted my arm. So I got into it, and yeah, just kind of really loved it. And I love having the challenge of getting the revenue for this company and building it up. And it's kind of like a baby to me now. So I want to
Yeah.
see this out.
And how long did it take before you felt like you were good at it? Because it's awkward at first, right? Because you really don't know what you're doing. You don't know if it's working.
Absolutely. So yeah, think about this a bit now as because I've done sales management as well, and I think in this kind of industry or this product, that's one thing I would like to say. I've only had my sales career here, so I've learned on this job. So I don't really know what I don't know, I suppose, and I haven't been able to compare with other companies. But I think we've done well. But in terms of the early stages, I think it takes 1 to 2 years to get okay, 2 to 5 to be proficient, and then 5+ to get good. And
Yeah.
so for people getting on board with us, it's hard to expect almost anything for a year. It's such a quite a complex industry. The customer doesn't even know what they want yet.
Right.
The market doesn't exist. The product's new. It's maturing. It's changing quickly. So yeah, it's very kind of fluid. So yeah, say a couple of years, you get your head around it. 2 to 3, you start finding yourself, and I think also there you start experimenting. You have taken the direction from your mentors in the early years. You've done things that you felt uncomfortable with, and kind of grown that way. And then I kind of see 2 years plus, you experiment, you try different techniques, you find your own style, and then 5 years plus, you get that kind of
Groove. Yeah.
commanding sort of presence of a deal.
And what do you wish you knew that first year that you know now?
Um, Saying no to a customer isn't going to ruin everything. Something
Yeah.
like that. Also that, CEOs and VPs are not gods. They're just people, and you're a person and you're equal to them. So, give yourself that self-respect, and expect that they treat you like that as well.
Yeah, because that confidence does take a while to build. that you feel comfortable talking to another VP as a peer instead of as a god or somebody super powerful or something.
No, totally. I think you can obviously teach the processes, teach the skills, and you can get people up to speed quickly, but that kind of gravitas is it's almost impossible to impart unless they're a very special person, without experience. And customers can see that those subtle uses of language that you might be saying the same things, but they just get that different vibe of somebody that has the experience. They want to work with you and want to be led by you. So yeah, it's interesting thing to develop.
And plus, when you're selling something that's new in a market that doesn't exist for a problem that people don't really understand yet, that's a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And I didn't quite realize the scale of the job when I started, because I hadn't started anywhere. I hadn't sold windows. I'd sold specials in the restaurant.
Yeah,
And I think that kind of that background does help.
it
Quite a lot of
does.
my team has that history, and if you think about it, what's a great waiter? They build that rapport at the front door. They ask you where you want to sit. They think about your needs. They entertain you. They become your friend and your confidant, and you want to keep going back. So yeah, I think those traits kind of those fit well.
And that's it, because that's all rapport. It's
But also,
anticipating
mhm,
needs, kind of recognizing when drinks are empty, or
yeah, yeah,
remembering what they like.
absolutely. And then the very best will really lead that meal and make it into an
Yes.
experience for the whole table. And they will entertain everyone, upsell. People won't even notice that that's happening, and they've had a great time, great experience, and the business has done well out of it. And usually the server has done well out of it as well. So
And what were some of the epiphanies that you had along the way where the light bulb really went on? And because I got to believe that half of your job was prioritization, because you could go a lot of different ways, but a very few are going to buy.
yes, yeah, and it's for those that don't know Igloovision, it's a very kind of visual product. It's immersive spaces, so content that wraps around users. So it looks on pictures and video very, very cool, very desirable. But we're just in these last few years really getting to the use cases. So yeah, lots and lots of dud leads that we need to flush out. People thinking it looks cool, not having any idea how they want to use it. And then yeah, the skill is picking those early adopters and those companies with vision that are going to take not a punt, but you know what I mean. They're going to put their
Sure.
trust in you.
Chance.
You make them feel that they can go on that journey with you and trial it and build those kind of use cases and get that value out of it, because that is the tricky thing. We are up to recently have been selling something without obvious return on investment immediately. So yeah.
And what questions or model did you have for determining whether it was really somebody who was going to spend money versus somebody who wanted to play and have a science project or an experiment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, it's been really hard to get a model for that. We've had some of our biggest deals that come in on a at Gmail,
Really?
and we have because they're kind of freelance film producers that are working on huge budgets that are freelance, they're not connected to the company. But yeah, I think in the last few years since COVID, it's been interesting because we diversified into kind of a bit of unified communications and collaboration.
Yep.
And so very hot topic, and we're able to kind of enhance that. So a lot of the kind of people that speak to us now are that kind of digital workplace manager, VP of digital. So we're getting more of a regular type of inquirer now, and kind of customer to work with and go down that route.
And what was it like moving into management? Because being able to do it on your own is one thing. Being able to teach it to somebody else is hard.
Yeah, it is. I think it's great, and everyone should give it a go, because I think sometimes you don't know what you do know or how good you are until you impart it on somebody else.
Yeah.
You're putting that situation where you need to bring them up quickly and get it across. And sometimes you're like, wow, did I did I know that? Is that how I do things? So it's kind of a bit of self revelation. But yeah, it is tricky. So yeah, the last sort of 4 years, I've just been helping my team, solving problems for them, fighting for them internally, making their job as easy as possible, and just giving them an open shot at doing their job, really. But recently, I think I've got some of the team up to a level where they're going to be doing that, and I've asked to downscale the team a bit so I can get back into some direct selling, understand the market a bit more, just make sure things are, got my finger on the pulse, so to speak.
And is it the type of sale that you get mostly inbound, or is it a lot of outbound as well?
There is a lot of inbound.
Okay.
And we've had a great marketing team. I think we're seen in the industry as having a really strong marketing message and image. So that's been fantastic. But sales team have always used tools and LinkedIn to reach out to people, and we do have some quite good success because it is an interesting product.
Yeah.
Very visual. If you can get something visual in front of that cold contact, then quite often they'll be like, yeah, I want to know more about this, I want a demo, I want XXX. So yeah, it's interesting. And the market is hotting up a little bit. There are other players doing this, so yeah, we're kind of learning and evolving and finding our place within that, and diversifying how we bring leads in and how we market as well.
And what's the hardest part of the sale?
It probably is that proof section for us. People are interested. I think 98% of people that come in for a demonstration, we get them into the room or we do a video conference, they're like, wow, this is awesome. Like, we can see the potential. Then it's the big journey of, okay, business case, use cases that they don't even know they need or have at the moment. So I remember I listened to a couple of podcasts recently, and one of your guests called it kind of project management, and I just love that sort of description.
It is,
when we get to that point, it is really laying it out to that contact, how you're going to prove it with them internally. And if you've got built that rapport with them, it's a journey that you go on together with them, and kind of figure it out and put the right things in place, put the right parameters for success, the right sign-offs, etc. So yeah, it's very it's interesting because every single one is different, and you have to get pretty creative as well to get these done.
And have you found any great way to do that, to find those use cases? Because they have to be somewhat attached to revenue or growth or cost reduction, or
well, you'd be surprised.
Entertainment.
Sometimes I just want to look ahead of the game. Yeah. So that could be handy. But yeah, we have got a lot more rigorous about early stage requirements gathering, and really drilling into those people, like, why do you want this? Why do you want it? Why do you think you want it? And almost not letting them get to the next stage until they've proven it to us, essentially, and it's worth us putting that investment into, maybe customizing content or integrating one of their apps, or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's interesting. We're getting a lot more strict and clued up about that kind of thing.
Have you found any commonality among customers and use cases, or justifying the cost?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we say it's great for kind of 4 main use cases. So there's the presentation side, experiential. So when you're inside of these spaces, it's just great to be surrounded by content, have a corporate message or an experience surrounding you. Then there's the simulation and training use cases. So we have a lot of like oil and gas, military, where you can transport people to locations that maybe don't exist or too dangerous. Then we have the visualization use case. So a lot of architects, engineers, city planners, they're able to bring in 3D models and data and fly through it before it exists. So, the use cases and value is pretty obvious, but we're just at that stage of gathering it and building the actual tangible ROIs and the values to them and things like that. So
how about medical? Has medical been one, like being able to do an operation without cutting somebody, where you could do it?
I've seen some interesting demos with virtual reality, with headsets. Where we've done that in the past is actually more for medical training. So putting a camera next to an operation and then streaming that whole environment from that camera with that expert surgeon back to a room full of trainees that just couldn't crowd around him or her, and they get that immersive experience and get that sense of presence there, which makes the message and the training stick.
And how about keeping momentum in these deals? Because I can see them starting off really hot, but then going cold pretty quick because internally they're not getting the support. There's a big gap between, what it does out of the box versus what they would need it to do to justify it.
No, it's a very good point. So we have like an applications engineering team. So they're always looking at new content and use cases and apps that can work in our immersive room. So combined with the marketing, we try and film all these little proof of concepts and get them out there. And when I've got a little interesting nugget that might speak to a contact or a lead that's gone cold, get it back in front of them, and that usually kind of hots things up and gets them excited. So yeah, that's quite key, is getting your innovations, your quick iterations and development out there into the kind of public eye.
Yeah. And what would you tell other people who are in a startup and are wondering whether there is the potential? Because you made the slug, you stayed. A lot of people would have given up.
Yeah. There will be tough times. I think we got down to tens of thousands in the bank in 2008 or so, and then one deal comes along and saves everybody, and you get it back up again. So yeah, I think it's keep at it, keep your enthusiasm and your belief up as well. That's very, very key. And say that to salespeople as well. If you're having a hard time, you can't let it rub off on you and rub off on the client, because those subconscious feelings and motions and language kind of can really get you into a rut. So yeah, it's that kind of positive mindset, pick yourself up and carry on.
And how have you kept the other founders having your back? Because typically there's a lot of finger pointing in startups when things aren't going well. When they are going well, everyone's the hero, everyone's happy. But when it goes wrong, it's easy to blame sales.
Yeah, there's been a few little bust ups in the early years. We're pretty level now. Founders are in places which kind of speak to what they did when they started. So design and R&D, brought in other high level people in finance and sales and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, as we've progressed, we've got into more and more complex projects, and sometimes what you did a year ago doesn't work this year from a systems point of view. So that can be tricky where you just don't know as a company that you should be recording that information or passing that information onto the team, and maybe you forget items that should be on your bill of materials, or you forget these services because you just don't have these systems in place in a growing company yet to track everything and to you know get the finite kind of quote over to the customer. So yeah, it has been interesting. We're definitely working a lot on that at the moment, and maturing quite a lot. So yeah, interesting process.
And how do you find salespeople where it's not the same thing, where they don't get, a lead, they have competitors, there's a demo, it's clear cut, they're in market, they're going to buy something.
So we've always had, well, the original founder and ex-CEO, the guy from IBM, he always had a policy of trying to recruit internally. So a lot of people, we move them from a department if they've got the kind of intellect and the nous. Sometimes they're complete sales newbies, and we spend that year and a half getting them up to scratch of how we do things. And my manager, sales director, has been in sales training, so it's really fantastic at kind of getting these tricks and skills into new recruits quickly. But yeah, I mean, we have tried high level experienced people, and it still takes them a year as well, to be honest.
Well, yeah, because it's a big shift, and if they think it's like a transactional sale, that usually fails. You need somebody who's done a consultative sell that's more like project management. That's kind of constant communication, building up a want and a need, an awareness, a problem that they have a solution to, that turns into a business case.
Exactly. And this is such a niche product that can do so many things in so many sectors. It's hard for people to, you can't just give them that sales message immediately. It takes that time for them to understand those benefits in different sectors and for different users within a business. So yeah, it's challenging, but we're doing pretty well.
And have you found a particular way of, when there is a business match for it, to making sure that they take action now versus 5 years from now?
Something we're seeing now actually is we're starting to bring like a proof of concept scheme. So that's working quite well. So putting a temporary solution in place for X amount of time, having it kind of heavily supported with customer success before and after and during that kind of proof of concept. So that's working, and it's giving us information that works with other businesses as well. So yeah, that's quite an interesting development in the last few years as well.
And what do you feel is your strongest attribute as a salesperson?
Personally, I think I'm quite good at getting people down to a personal level quite quickly. That's one of my challenges I give myself, is when I get into a meeting and meet everyone, is let's get people down to a personal level. Let's not try and put each other up on a pedestal and be a bit awkward with each other and use all this business nonsense. Let's just be people and talk about it, and kind of work together on it if that's what we want to do. If we don't, let's figure it out early and move on, kind of thing. And I think the other thing that plays into that is just looking at situations and then trying to distill them down to their simplest form as quickly as possible. If something happens on a deal, is it actually that action? Is it that? Is there something, what's the real basis of what's going on there? So, and just breaking that down, making it simple and figuring out a way to move on.
I think that latter skill is really important, because I think too many times we hear something from the customer and we chase it and try and answer it when it's really not an issue. It's just a smoke screen for for something else. No budget, or we need something that has this, or
exactly. And or a rep saying, right, I need to make this document. I'm like, do you need to make that document, or did they just not have anything to give
ask
you?
for?
And, so they're just making you run around for the sake of it, and don't fall for it. That's
And how do you do the former one? Get away from the sales voice and the business conversation and talk like normal people.
Yeah, I mean, I, it's just, I guess, my kind of personality.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a joker, I guess, and that'll probably kind of push the boundaries a little bit, maybe. So I quite like to test
What's that like? I wouldn't know.
test boundaries, make some jokes, probably be a little bit inappropriate, see how it goes down, and then find your level from there.
Yeah. But
Sometimes backfires.
well, I think the other backfires too when you're especially when you're getting into a big account with as many people in the room, everyone kind of plays a role versus
Yeah,
really is open and honest about what they like to accomplish and where the opportunity really is.
absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. And that's definitely something I did for the first 5 years, was try and play this role. And I went to a school in rural England. Didn't finish university, so I had these kind of these ideas of and self doubt, and think that the only way to get over them is play these roles. But actually,
It's
when you
the
know your stuff,
opposite.
yeah, when you know your stuff, then it feels great, and you can just own it. I mean, that's one of these epiphany moments you asked me about.
Yeah.
I was probably been doing it 3 years or something, and I was on a evening call from the UK to an opportunity in the US at maybe 8 p.m. And just realized we hadn't really kicked in commission much at that point. I was just doing it for the love of it. And I was sat in my little house, just thought to myself, I'm telling all these kind of VPs from this huge kind of film production company how to make 360 media and content and how we're going to move forward. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I do know what I'm talking about here. So
Yeah.
it's nice feeling.
Cool. Hey, Jake, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, Jake Broland, www.igloovision.com. Yeah, and some great kind of videos, case studies on there if you want to see some interesting immersive technology.